One of the coolest things about the 21st century is we can take comic covers that are fantastic, like this King in Black J. Scott Campbell over here, 9.8, and produce it into a real-life 3D size model. And you can really do that with so many different comic covers. In fact, there's a very cool variant of that comic cover. I have it right here. Now that I think about it, this one's actually a little bit cooler. I kind of wish that I had this. You know what? Let's do one of those too. Much better. Hey, my name is Mr. X. Welcome to the Extreme Channel. We are giving away $1,000 statues to you guys. If you want to know how to win one, stay tuned for later in the video. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to the Extreme Channel. Today we have a very cool statue for you, or diorama if you will. As you see, it's multiple characters, multiple switch outs, multiple comic covers, and multiple concepts, all from King in Black. So, if you're unfamiliar, you've probably seen Venomized everything, especially if you're a follower of this channel. Now, believe it or not, that comes from a Donny Cates storyline about 4 or 5 years ago where Carnage essentially became a god and all this stuff started happening with the symbiote, and Eddie defined who he was as Venom and not as Venom. That's where you see like a winged Venom. But anyway, a lot of characters got symbioted or carnagized or venomized or whatever you want to call it. Now, within this King in Black storyline, the two love interests in Spider-Man's life, Gwen Stacy and of course Mary Jane, actually got venomized and carnagized and symbioted and all that, and they were fighting. So Mary Jane was pretty evil. She was like the carnagized version from Absolute Carnage. And Gwen Stacy, or Gwenom, actually had the symbiote more as a good person, and she was trying to stop Mary Jane without killing her because they are best friends. They even, as you see, have a band together. J. Scott Campbell, who's a famous artist, who, believe it or not, I actually own some statues from his concepts. Check out my most recent one with my wife right here. There's about 5 of them we own. But he did some comic covers, some alternate covers, these slabs right here, of this storyline. So as you saw in the intro, we have one that matches them playing the band, and you can see a very exquisite and very elaborate statue right here that matches that. But there are some switch out options where you can actually match the alternate cover right here. So when I saw this, I knew I had to have it because I love venomized and symbioted characters, and I thought this would match perfectly, despite the fact I currently already own a venomized Mary Jane. Now, I don't know if I'm going to keep this or not. It's a fantastic piece, but this is a carnagized Mary Jane, so maybe somehow I can justify it. However, I had no idea that this statue was going to be this big.
That's what she said.
And it's so big, it's almost prohibitive big. So we're going to talk about that in the Extreme Review today. So let's just kick it off. We have a ton to cover, as you can imagine. And before we dive into that, I do want to let you know, if you want exclusive early access to stuff, there's a few ways you can do it. One is just follow my social media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. The links for those is in the description below. 2, you'll also see another link for a live show, a weekly live show that myself and Gem Mint Collectibles are doing starting in a few weeks here. And the last thing I'm going to whore myself out doing is check out the early access, because members have already seen this video about a month before it even launched. But with that, let's start with concept. Now, clearly, this concept really changes despite what switch out options you use. So I'm going to try and talk about both while only showing one. But these are direct matches from the comic covers, and you know that I love that. If there's a statue that's based off of a comic cover, I have to have a 9.8 in that cover, unless it's cost prohibitive. But as you see, you have Gwen and MJ in the band. So MJ is clearly the guitarist and maybe the singer, where Gwen sticks to her classic drums that we know her for. You see a huge drum setup, you see a huge amplifier, the guitar. I have the switch outs where they're carnagized or venomized right here in the current picture you're looking at, and we're going to look more at the others in a little bit, and again, you can check those on social media. But it's an exact duplicate of the cover. So from a creativity standpoint, there wasn't a lot of thought process behind it. It's, hey, this looks really cool, I'd like to see this in a statue, so the commissioner made it. Now, with that being said, I still don't discount the statue, even though the creativity belongs, did I say belongs? Belongs to J. Scott Campbell. I think this is a 5 out of 5 on a statue. How creative. We don't really see Marvel statues with entire band setups or completely different switch out torsos. The fact that it's a diorama, the fact that it matches 2 comic covers, that is pretty cool and not something you see every day. So our next category is design, and with design, when you have a statue this elaborate, there's going to be issues. Now there are issues with this, but nothing horrible. So I'm going to show you guys the unboxing, not the assembly, because there was over 70 pieces, so it took quite a while. And Mrs. X and I did it about 5 in the morning, and we look pretty rough. Well, not me. I'm always good looking. We'll kick this off with a big shout out to the POS FedEx driver that forged my signature and just threw them in my driveway. 2 boxes, and it had so many layers in each box. If you've ever opened a custom statue like this, it's one of these puzzle pieces where the layers kind of meld together. So I always take meticulous photos in case I ever box it back up. This is a good reference point. But this one, honestly, as you can see in the photos here with the 70 different pieces and the different layering, I don't even know how I'm going to do it. I mean, we are still on the first box here. I guess just never sell it is probably the solution to that, but it's very difficult when it's layered like that. The second box wasn't as bad, but still pretty difficult in my opinion. And the weight difference between the boxes was pretty impressive, mostly due to the base itself. But as you can see, I will still have difficulties if I ever need to rebox this up. And hopefully these photos will help someday in the future. Now, once everything was unboxed here, take a look at some of the pieces. This wasn't even all of them. Now, thankfully, with all the 70 pieces I had, there was only one broken piece right here, this hand. It'll be a little tricky to glue, but not a big deal. Now, one of the other things about the assembly is it was hard to do. It was really hard to do. I actually had to use the covers for bases. So they did make 2 assembly videos. They were horrible, though. They usually are. Some of the time, the guy holding the camera filming, he was filming something else while the other guy was assembling it. So I had to figure a lot of it out on my own, and I still couldn't figure out where a few pieces went. Okay, so a lot to talk about design. First is the prohibitive size of this. Now, the reason why I say it's prohibitive is it is 32 inches wide. That is huge. Now, depending on what type of display cases you have, you're not going to find a lot that can accommodate that. The depth is the big problem for me. It's about 25 inches. I was going to put it in a Maja case like the ones I have behind me. They're about 23 and a half, 24 inches. So I'm not sure what to do. I could put it on top of one of them. My Venom setup is just to the left here. You can barely see it coming out right over there. The tallest point of this is about 21 and a half inches. So I could put this on top, but I actually saved the top spots for the really tall pieces that won't fit in a Maja case. So my point is, I plan to put this in a Maja case, but now it won't fit, and I don't know what to do. I just thought of a possible idea. So anyway, I think the size is a problem, especially when you look at the base here. They could have cut it down a little bit more to save room. It's really crowded in the back, and we'll take a look at that later. But they could have gone without one of the drums to save room. So I definitely think that's a negative. Another negative I have is this is pretty delicate. So what I mean by that is I don't think things will fall over. The guitar might, because there's not really any way to stand it up. But some of the magnets aren't the strongest, so this is definitely not a statue you move. That's why I'm not rotating it for you guys. Now, despite those negatives, I want to talk about the positives. So first of all, I think the different display options are kick-ass. Not only the ones that match the cover, but there's some other ones. Let's look at them all. So first of all, if I'm going to display Carnage, MJ, or Carnage, or whatever her name is, this is what you see. She has to hold the axe. I suppose you could take the axe out and it would look fine, but the axe is badass. So let's definitely keep that in there. But that's the only display option for her. Gwenom, you have a few different display options. You have this giant, huge tongue right here, which does have a little bit of a seam line. It doesn't sit the best. That matches the cover. Or you can do a shorter tongue. And the reason you can do this shorter tongue right here is you couldn't use the longer tongue on the extra torso display stands. They have one for each. You can see right here. That is really cool. And of course, you can not only display these characters when they're venomized or carnageized, but you can display the regular characters right here that you can see as well. Now, while I'm showing you these, I'm also going to show you what they look like on the bodies. These are the ones that have some additional switch out options. So first, here is Gwen as she sits. The necklace is optional. MJ has 2 different portraits, and I'm not sure why they did this. One is a serious portrait, or more serious, I would say. I'm not going to use that. It doesn't match the cover. and the other is a cover matching one where she's smiling. Now, as cool as all that shit is, I think a missed opportunity was they should have had the same keyholes for the portraits. I would have loved to mix and match. So what I mean is I would have loved to put the regular Gwen Stacy head on the Venomized Gwen torso, because it would be like mid-transformation, and especially with the MJ, or vice versa. So unfortunately, the keys are different shapes, so you can't do that with the necks. But I think that would have been easy to do, and I'm bummed they didn't. All the extra shit back here, it is too much. Really, those are my biggest comments on design. Like I said, there are a few weak magnets and seam lines, but nothing major with all the different pieces that went together. So I give them a lot of points for ingenuity and ambition. So I think it's a 4 out of 5 on the design, believe it or not, despite some of my issues that I'm not happy with. Let's look at the paint and sculpt. I ordered this right away based off a render. And of course the render looked great. And then I started seeing some pictures, especially the portraits, and I was like, shit, I made a mistake. And that was before I knew how big it was. And while they're not perfect, we'll look at them here, I think they did a better job than it shows on the pictures. Here's some close-up video. Now, while switching out the torsos isn't incredibly difficult, it's not an easy task either. So I'm going to leave it like this for the display because I think there's more to look at with them in their human form. By the way, huge shout out that the shirts, and this is based off the cover, one is Venom and Carnage, #1, I believe, and then the other is AMS 316, one of the coolest Venom comics out there. So that's neat. But, you know, the base, one of the problems, and I've talked about this in other videos before, when you do a cover and it doesn't show everything, you have to get creative. So they did with the base. I like it. Almost has this zebra shag carpet vibe to it. So like what girls in a garage or, you know, a band garage would have. So I do dig that. I like that a lot. Can't believe I said dig, but yep, I did. Kind of spotted, but it flows well with the statue in my opinion. I'm going to try and give you a look at everything that they have back here. So, and forgive me, I'm not a musician. I mean, I know what a cymbal is, and I know what a snare drum is, and I know what a bass drum, but that's about it. So I have the foot pedal up here simply for the fact it was like that in one of the photos I saw. But obviously, most likely it would go back here with the seat. And I'm sure if any of you are drummers, you're just flipping out about the configuration I have. But we're just looking at the paint and sculpt. So the Spidey symbol is a decal, just like it is on the cover there. But I think these look great. There's almost this shine that they added to the purple on the drums, but it's not there. So the cover was pink. I'm so glad they went with purple instead. I think it gives it a much better vibe, and it flows better with Gwen's outfit, which we'll talk about. But they did a nice job. I've never seen a drum set or microphone as Mrs. X and I would call it. She's standing next to me listening, waiting for me to be done so she can get some other shit done. Isn't that right?
Yep.
See? So, but they did a really nice job with all the equipment. I'm really impressed. That's not why you bought this, but it's nice to know that they didn't skimp on that. It doesn't look like plastic toys too much. Guitar, not as good as the drums, but I do like the amp behind it. Fender amp for the guitar, that's pretty cool. One thing I wish they didn't do is the microphone has a wire you can see back there. They shouldn't have even put the wire. It should have just been a wireless mic. And of course I could always break it off, cut it or break it off. But let's look at the ladies. So first of all, torn pants. You know, one thing that's interesting is Gwen actually had different flags on her pants. I know it's hard to see with the glare, where they didn't do that. And I'm glad they didn't. I would have preferred it without, but it has the same rips. The paint with the rips could have been better. It's not super clean. You almost see some, and it's hard because my camera keeps wanting to focus on different things, but some of the flesh tones are almost in some of the strands in the tears. So I think that's a little bit of a miss. I don't know if that was intentional. They were trying to show skin between it, but I like the texture on it. I like the seam line. And that can be said for both. And then her, same thing. All the strands left in between are actually the color of her skin. I think that's a huge miss. It does look similar to that on the cover, but those should have been painted in red, in my opinion. I don't understand why seams from your ripped jeans would be the same color. That's a big negative, although I'm not going to take as many points off because it does match the cover. But same thing. Look at the detail in her pants. Fantastically done other than that. Shiny shoes. She almost, Gwen almost looks like she has some crocodile shoes going on. They both have their necklaces that match the cover. Gwen's is almost moving in air, which is kind of cool. And let's look at the portraits. So, as I said, I was a little worried at first, but I think they turned out really well. And I apologize. This is a new camera. Keeps wanting to jump around. But I was almost worried it'd be too doll-like, but I find a big comic vibe to these, and I think they did a really nice job. And we're going to look at the symbiote stuff in a second. But the hair looks fantastic, too. The different colors flowing on both of them. You see Gwen with her traditional headphones on. So pretty good on those. And then over here, we have the symbioted creatures. So fantastic portrait on Mary Jane. Truly looks evil. Reminds me of the way it was in King in Black and Absolute Carnage. It's a great read, by the way. Matches the cover. Bases are simple. You know, it's interesting. They wrote Carnage and Gwenom. Carnage was controlling MJ, so I get part of it. But I really like this portrait. And then the suit looks alive. You have some movement to it with the tendrils coming out. Same thing with Gwen's or Gwenom's over here. Face kind of plain. Almost looks like the black suited Superman. Tongue looks great with some tones. Really dark tones that almost give it a saliva feel. Yeah, so overall, some pros and cons on the paint and sculpt, but I like it a lot. Let's start with the paint. I think it's a 3 out of 5 overall. There's some. It's hard to judge a statue like this that has so many different pieces because some are done really well, some need improvement. So I think it's a 3 out of 5 on the paint. The sculpt I really like. I have to give it a 4 out of 5. I think it's above average, especially for the same reasons that the paint was hard to judge. This is great because they sculpted it so many places. The axe was my biggest thing. I think that could have been done better. Let's talk about value. So this is a big piece. There's a lot going on here. So the great news about this piece is it's super rare. They only made 20 of these, probably because they couldn't get enough buyers, but the price isn't bad. This is $1,300. Nowadays, you know, it's hard to judge what price is based off of because there's so many different things that contribute to it. Who was the sculptor? Who was the factory? What kind of quality did they do? Licensing, which this is a custom, so that means it's a private unlicensed commission. That didn't cost them anything. The molds, the prints, the time. So it's kind of hard to judge, but I'll tell you this. So most 1/4 scale, which is what this is, those statues are anywhere from $700 to $2,000, depending on how elaborate they are. This is really elaborate, so I would put this in the higher end, but there's 2 characters, and there's 2 switch outs. So with that being said, I think the value is pretty good. It's about a 4 out of 5. If you have a big symbiote or Spider-Man collection, this works for either of those. It displays the iconic characters of Gwen and MJ. So I think it's a 4 out of 5 on the value. I think I could probably make money on this if I could figure out how to repack it. Although I am going to find a way to display it because I do really like this, which brings us to our last category here. Does it have the X factor? This isn't a cumulative score. This is, do I love it? Do I think it's, you know, one of the coolest statues out there? It's not one of the coolest statues out there, but this is damn cool. I really like this. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 5 out of 5. I didn't think this would be, I thought this would be a 2 or 3 out of 5. I thought I'd resell this right away. Other than the depth issue, I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to hold on to this for quite a while. What do you guys think? Am I dick riding this too much? Throw that down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this piece. And again, check out my social media for more pictures than you've seen today. I really appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Nope, it's not time for that. It's time for you to do a comment. When you've made 2,500 videos or so, you're on autopilot sometimes. My apologies. As we try to grow this channel, we like to reward you guys for watching and subscribing. So because of that, every 5,000 milestone when it comes to subscribers, we give away a couple $1,000s worth of statues. We've actually given away over 20 statues. To win one was easy. First, you gotta be subscribed to the channel. You'll get bell notifications when videos drop. Each video that drops, you wanna make a comment on those videos. We pick a random video, we give away statues based on a comment. You can say whatever you want. The more videos you comment on, the higher your chances are to win. All right, we're back and we're not on autopilot because your mom's a horse. So, with that being said, please give me a like because it makes me feel better and I can sleep at night. I don't sleep at night. Do you sleep at night? Throw that in the comments.
Talk to you soon. Take care.